All right, welcome to another video from the chart reader. So today we are going to look at energy and oil. Actually should be an interesting video. So I'm going to talk about a swing trade that I did make since the last video. I definitely got something wrong on the last video, so we're going to go over why I got it wrong. Again, I'm not here to pretend I'm perfect, right? If I make a mistake, I'll let you know just what was behind it, right? And then, yeah, we'll do what we always do, right? We will look at the daily and the weekly. We'll use our 5 moving averages, these horizontal support and resistance lines that I do manually draw myself. And then when we're done up here, we'll use the MACD, RSI, and volume as our lower indicators. Again, 80% of the work is up here, 20% is down here. So actually, the one thing that I did swing was SCO, what we're looking at now. So the last time I made the video, I think was around the 5th. I'm not exactly sure exactly if it was the 5th or the 6th, but basically the break of all of this got me really excited, right? And I've talked about it a few times. This is the first time in years we have been over this purple line, okay? So I definitely got pretty excited. I like the fact that we had tested it. Let me zoom out, sorry. We were close here, no cigar. We actually tested it, I felt pretty confident that we were going to get a little bit of a break, you know? And look, what did I do? The exact same techniques that I was doing when I did my swing trade on Tilray, right? You would basically buy, work your way up. Once you finish the day's candle, you're going to go ahead and put a stop loss, right? Generally, the way I do my stop losses is if I have moving averages, I'll use the moving averages for my stop loss. Otherwise, I'll use either roughly 50% of the candle that we just won, or I'll probably go back and kind of use some sort of horizontal support line, right? So fill the candle, set my stop around here, right? You don't hit, nothing happens, which is great. You move up the next day, you end up putting around 50%, right? And I'll tell you, you don't always want to be exact, right? You always want to go just a little bit lower. Like if I had to guess, I probably used this wick, give or take, to put my stop loss here because I know 50% was around the wick and you go just a little bit lower, right? Because again, you never know if it's going to bounce off that point, right? So don't get too greedy with your stop losses. Be willing to take a little bit extra of a loss just in case you can bounce and go up. So that did actually happen for me here. So I rode again 2 full candles. I put my 50% here, and then I do end up getting stopped out somewhere in this lower wick here. Okay, so one more time. This super break of the 200. Normally, I should have waited the full day and then got in right here. I'll be honest, I was just a little excited. Like I said, we had one good test here, one actual break here. I felt good here. We had some good lower indicators. And I'll be honest, again, when I'm making my trades, I'm using what I call the one, right? I'm using my more detail. I don't want to say D because this is a really good stack, right? But I have a lot more layers of lower support. And again, I liked what I saw. So again, you ride a day, put a stop loss. Ride a day, put a stop loss. Ride a day, put a stop loss. You're out. And then, hey, look, it's okay because it ended up going down anyway. So one of the saddest things, and it's happened to me a bunch of times, you get stopped out and then it just pops up and goes, right? That's kind of why I was saying that go a little bit lower. And again, I'll make a stop loss video soon. That's definitely one of my plans. But yeah, that's how I traded this couple day window, right? Look, was it a massive profit? Not really. Don't get me wrong, right? Was it just under 10%? Yeah, it actually was because I got in roughly in the 26s. I got out roughly in the 28s, right? So $2 right there, that's 10%. And look, in the climate we're in, I'll take those all day, especially again, if I'm not having to sit in front of the computer, in front of the mouse, and like make instantaneous moves, right? Literally, I made a buy, end of the day, I adjust my stop loss, and I don't do that. That's the only thing I do, right? That's a good way of trading. So, all that aside, hopefully you learned from that. And again, I'm not here to tell you where my money's at when it's in it, but if I end up trading anything on any of my videos, I'll let you know, just the aftermath at least, right? And hey, if I'm wrong, I'll also do it too. I promise you that. I'm not going to just, like I said, pretend here to be a genius and all that cuz I'm not. You know that. So, but hey, what are we looking at? Let's get into the chart. So we break the cluster and now we're starting to curve down, right? Oh, hold on 1 second. Let me make sure I don't want to look at post market regular hours only. Okay, good. Sorry about that. So We've definitely lost after today. We lost the one full candle, and really okay. The line's too close. We're very close to actually losing two candles in one day, right? So this is a real bad candle. You can see that the RSI is no longer on the happy side. MACD has been doing really well. It's definitely starting to plateau a little bit, right? So I can see this coming down. And again, you can see the last 2 days we've been selling versus the previous five, which has been nothing but buying, right? So I could see this starting to cool down. The real question will become this: is it going to hold the 200, right? So obviously it'd be good if now when I say it would be good, I'm talking solely about this stock, right? If you are into oil stocks, you want this thing to do horrible, right? But just talking SCO specifically, a bounce on the 8 would make sense. A bounce on the 20 would make sense. If this hat look, there are three lines in this cluster, right? It really would be difficult to lose this, right? So you would almost expect this would almost be the lowest it would go. We'll call this $25, right? But again, a drop from 28 to 25 is a little bit more than 10%, so don't poo-poo that, right? But nonetheless, 25 is probably the lowest this should go immediately. Again, one of these two lines very easily could be a bounce point as well, right? But the real question for me is going to be what happens with this 200. Did we actually take it this time? Are we actually going to be able to use it as a support line and bounce back up? And again, we've talked about it. This 200 line can either be a monster swing up, and just look at this, right? Once we cross this line, it's nothing but downtrend, right? So um, it's a matter of really what happens with this line ultimately. But for me, I'm very interested in that 200. But yeah, nonetheless, this is starting to look bad, which will be good for oil stocks, right? Now, look, coming to the weekly, very important week, right? This made a monster run, broke two lines, tested the 50. I'm expecting really good confirmation since we broke two lines. Clearly, that's not the case right now, right? So this should have gapped up here. I'm not gonna lie to you. My swing, that is also what I was hoping for, right? But again, I don't see too much happening here. But again, one more time, you can see that 25 cluster that we were talking about over there is another two-line cluster right here, right? It'd be really bad if it came that low on the weekly, but nonetheless, this is going to be pretty hard to break. And then the question just will be, hey, is there going to be a bounce here or not? One more quick thing. I don't talk about news too much. I saw something about Russia and oil productions. Let's be honest, when you see the word Russia next to oil productions, that's just as important as seeing, Saudi Arabia or any of those Middle Eastern countries, right? Because again, they control a lot of oil. And, I'm not here to talk about politics, any of that nonsense, right? But if something happens with Russia and their oil productions, you have to imagine things will get real interesting for oil, right? Which really should mean it will go up and this would go down, right? So just kind of keep that in your back pocket. I don't care about news. I care about lines breaking or lines bouncing, but hey, if Russia and oil are brought in a sentence, my ears will perk up, right? If Saudi Arabia and whatever, you know what I mean? Like just be aware of your surroundings. But again, looking like SCO might cool off, so we're hoping to see some good here. And I remember seeing a little bit of that as I was looking at the charts this morning, right? So look, this made a really bad drop, right? And it came all the way to the 200, the very last moving average, right? That's bad. That's a death cross. That's bad. That's a death cross. But all that said, we haven't lost the 200 just yet, okay? So this is going to be extremely critical, all right? I like that we got a little bit of a peak on the RSI. I do like that the day was actually strong enough to overtake this. And look, we're actually kind of close to this little doji right here, right? So hopefully tomorrow gets us a little closer to the 8. But look, ultimately, we haven't been over the 8 in a long time, right? So just keep that in the back of your pocket. But either we bounce up from this 200 and hey, maybe make our way all the way up to $70, right? Near it, at least to the 50. Otherwise, if we lose this, there's a real good shot we're coming down even lower to 60, right? Almost a 5% drop, right? 6% would be 10. This is a little bit more than 3, so like roughly 6%, right? But again, A lot is riding on this 200. Do not lose the 200, okay? That's super, super important with Oxy. This is not a good weekly, right? This clearly isn't a good weekly. We lost the 8 for what? Almost a month now, right? It's been 4 weeks completely under the 8. We've now lost the 20 really devastatingly last week. This isn't that bad, but again, we're so far away from it that, I mean, in some ways this is confirmation. Obviously, better confirmation would have been under it, right? But hey, if we can scratch our way back to like 65, retake about 50% of this bad candle, that could be really good. But again, I think a lot is going to ride on the next few days. Will it actually get over the 8? Right? Again, it's been so long under it. You can't just necessarily expect it to get over, right? So we'll need some more buying. Look, nothing but dumping a couple days here, but even these couple days weren't enough, right? So we want volume. We want the volume to be over the 50-day average, right? We want volume in the 18 millions, give or take. And again, it'll potentially be a buy once it gets over the 8, our rule number 1. For now, we're just kind of watching to see what happens on this 200. INDO, INDO. So again, I know I saw INDO look good. I don't think IMPP finished in the green. And again, we'll look at that in a couple. But I tend to keep INDO and IMPP on the radar together. I like them to move in unison. I really do. But again, that's just my 2 cents. So a few immediate things to call out. Normally I start up here, but I'm going to start down here real quick. Okay, there was a point where people were buying about 2 million, 3 million shares per day. Okay, again, the 50 average, 50 days ago, we were up here. As volume decreased, and I mean, just look, you can see it, right? There are a couple spikes here, but for the most part, we've been wildly under the average. The average has dropped from 3 million all the way down till about 1,800,000, right? We've depleted 2/3 of the volume. That's not good. You need volume for a stock to go up, right? This really screams people have lost interest here, okay? And look, I'm not here to insult any stock. I'm just being realistic, right? The 50-day average has plummeted and continues to downtrend. Again, you can see it. We were over this line, that million line for some of it, at least through right here. But then ultimately it drops again, right? So just be careful. This volume is really sad. 120 million, like 120,000. Sorry, that's nothing, right? Again, I won't say it's nothing because there's some that can't even get that high. But again, just keep volume in mind because again, my rule number 2 of golden trading, volume is king, okay? So from here, what are we looking at? Look, there's been a nasty drop. Hopefully we can maybe gap up a little bit and at least get back to towards the 8. Is that not quite 10%, right? 50 cents. It's a little under. It's a little more than 5%, though. That wouldn't be too bad, right? But I could see maybe a quick gap play to the 8. Will it get over the 8? I'm not too sure, right? Because again, definitely struggled here, went horizontal, and then dropped again. I wouldn't even call this much of a capture of the 8, right? So it really hasn't been till here. And all this was nothing more than horizontal trading, right? But look, I've said it. When you horizontal trade, you often get thrown down pretty violently. And look, we went from rough numbers, right? From 7 to 550. That's a pretty nasty drop right there, right? That's what, more than 20%, right? A buck for it. Yeah, that's not, it's violent when you drop down, right? So again, hopefully a little bit fill. At the very minimum, I'm not touching the stock until it gets over the 8, right? That's rule number 1. And look, you have to imagine this is not a good weekly, and it's not, right? Horizontal for a while starts to throw out. Look how far we're getting from the 8. It's going to take a lot for the 8 for this to get over on the weekly. And look, I always say it, if your weekly's not good, you can't expect much on the dailies, right? So be careful with Indo. Again, I know I see the +3. I know I saw the negative SCO, but I'm still a little shaky on Indo. CEI, again, same actual story as Indo. A bunch of down. Hopefully we can at least make a little bit of a ride up. But the last time I made this video, I kind of implied this was going to come down to 7 cents. Didn't really get as low. It got to 8 cents. So, hey, I mean, I wasn't too far off. But look, I'm not here to bash any stocks. All I'm really doing is highlighting the importance of the 8 moving average and then ultimately all the rest of them, right? But rule number one is get over the 8, okay? And hey, you can get over the 8, but then can you get over the 20 as well? And then you just go back down. Can you get over the 8? Not that, you know what I mean? So all this has been doing is trading under the 8 for the most part, and it really highlights why I'm telling you two things. Number one, avoid all-time lows. It can just keep going lower, right? Number two, just there's a reason I say don't buy anything under the 8, right? I'll never tell you what to do with your money. None of this is financial advice. You know all that kind of stuff, but there's a reason why I keep banging the 8 moving average drum, right? It's a real thing. And then ultimately, you've seen so many stocks struggle with the 20. A good rule can also just be don't touch anything under the 20, right? Again, the harder your criteria is, the safer your money should be. Yeah, you might miss a couple pops here and there, but we're not here for a couple pops here and there. We're here for the complete opposite of this. I want to buy a stock down here and just watch it ride up the 8 all the way to here. And we've seen it a bunch of times, all right? It's just an ugly market right now, but I'm telling you, it happens, all right? So I'm not going to talk too much more here. Hopefully it rides to the 8. Could be a decent, right? I mean, again, pennies here are significant percentages, right? So keep that in mind. But yeah, we'll look at the weekly real quick. Again, just real far under the 8. Get over the 8 on the weekly. You'll get better dailies, right? So again, just repeating, and hopefully it's sinking in. All right, like I said, IMPP, I know I saw this one at the close. This one was negative as I remembered, so it didn't do anything crazy at the end of the market. And again, I keep INDO and IMPP kind of on the same lens, right? So they should be moving the same way. This one hasn't been as violent of a drop, right? Again, there was some back here, but we saw, I'm just going to kind of do the same view with INDO. INDO, oh, I guess, well, this one went from 7 to 5. How bad was your drop? I guess, okay, because this was in cents. So again, 4, 8. No, this was about a 20. This was actually a devastating drop too, because this was more than 20%, right? Every 4 cents is 10. 8 cents would put us still at 36. Yep, that's 33. Damn, it was the exact same drop. That is also why I keep on the same lens. All right, good job. Math is math, baby. What are we doing now? Well, all we're doing is trading under the 8, right? Under the 8. That's an ugly, ugly death cross, right? You just lose all of them in one chunk. And look, that we've seen it a bunch, right? When this goes down and this goes down, they just kind of, I'm going to go back to CEI real quick, right? Again, I'm not implying that's going to do the exact same thing, but yeah, as it gets out of the cluster, the two just kind of, they ride down together, right? So that's the last thing you want to see. Let's look at the weekly real quick, but yeah, you can't expect too much on the weekly. Look, this isn't that old a stock, right? It's only been trading since what, mid-December, early December, right, of last year. So it's only actually been about a year trading. But look, I want to break this line. I want to break 44 and trade all the way up to here. I would love to do that because again, once you break this, you're starting to fill this the downtrend, right? We can probably make another line right there at 55. Let's just do that right now. But yeah, look, the safest place is 55 to the dollar. Not even really to the dollar, to here, right? But that's a real nice gap fill. 44 even to the 55 and after wouldn't be bad, right? Right here in the 30s, it's just going to be real noisy. Really, I wouldn't touch this thing at all under 37, right? Under 37, you're going to be at least better on the weekly. And again, we're not here for the little bit daily noise. And look, that 37 puts you over these lines. Yeah, again, for sure, for sure. The last of the energy of the oil, sorry, HUSA. This is one of the newer ones. Again, so where are we? Look, this one I might be putting on my radar. Am I going to make any moves anytime soon? No, 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 of course not. But there's a couple things I do like seeing here. We're still under the 8, right? So again, it's still not technically a good stock. However, this is a cluster of all 5 lines, right? Anything can happen in a cluster, all right? And you'll see that's why I got a stock wrong. We're a couple away from the one I got wrong. It was LIACF. But clusters are like tornadoes. I've said it. They either throw you down, throw you up, or you just kind of keep riding them, right? And anything can happen here. And hey, if we can just get back into the cluster, it gives you a chance of anything can happen, right? So I'm liking that SCO is looking bad. I'm hoping that this gets back into it. And again, once you're back in the cluster, anything can happen. I don't trade in the clusters, but if this crosses up here, even I'll be honest with you, if this crosses 4 and gets me over that, I might even consider a swing from here to here, right? It's about 5%. I wish it was 10%. You know, I like my 10 percenters, right? I kind of hover around that number. But shit, I'm sorry to curse, but if the technicals look good, that's not a bad 5% gap right there, in all honesty, right? So I wouldn't touch this by any means. I would love to trade it once it's above here, but anything can happen in a cluster. And hey, I'm much happier for this to jump back into the cluster than violently fall out, right? We've seen that a bunch of times. So HUSA, by no means, I'm not even going to set an alert. You know what? Let's just do it. I'll set an alert for right here. 403. I'm okay with 403. Beautiful. But by no means would I jump into this. And hey, and I don't even think it will, right? But let's say it did a massive run to 405, 406, let's say it got to 407 tomorrow. I still would want confirmation, right? Because that's 4 lines in a single day, right? That's a big deal. But again, I set an alert just to see what happens with that cluster. Weekly, you can see it, right? Weekly's been going horizontal. That's why we've been getting so many days of horizontal, right? So again, that's why I say it. Look at your weekly, because the weekly really will dictate what your dailies will look like. It really does. Why am I not talking about this too much? It's 80% up here, right? I care way more about this than any of this, right? So, cool. All right, UEC. Last time we talked about this, and it's still kind of happening, right? So there's some interesting things happening here. Obviously, the first thing I noticed was falling out of the cluster and working our way down. There seems to be a little bit of an uptrend going right here, right? And actually, the last 3 of the 4 days have either been on or above the 50-day average, and were actually buys. So this is pretty bullish in terms of just looking at volume, right? Again, the last 50 days, I'm expecting to be up here. It's generally sad when you're down here, even though it's a little, right? This pretty much was on it. This was a little higher, definitely a little selling here, but back to buying right here, right? And that whole time, we made a little baby uptrend. Are we actually over the 8? We're not. We're on it, but we're not over it, right? And since we've been under it for most of the time, the on it doesn't mean as much to me. I need to be over it to feel good. But I'll be honest, I will put an alert here. The 352, why not? Put me 2 cents over. I'd like to know if we're 2 cents over. There might be a decent trade to here. And hey, if it breaks that, it might come all the way to here, right? And kind of, this might be the harder place since there's 2. But hey, that's a decent trade. If that breaks, there you go, a little leg more, and you can probably expect to get yourself out right there, right? So hey, I wouldn't mind if UEC does that move. Nonetheless, look, I'm just, again, I kind of talk about it. I really wanted this thing to break what was 420 at the time is now 423, but the better trading will be up here if we can get over all 5 versus where we're at of under all 5, right? But hey, RSI is kind of peaking still, super straight. This has definitely been on a downtrend. I have not liked it, but again, seems like the MACD's trying to turn a little bit, but a lot still needs to happen to make this a buy. Definitely, it would be, I kind of wish I didn't put the alert because it kind of goes against a lot of my rules, right? But you can see I'm kind of getting a little greedy right there trying to do it. But I wouldn't mind knowing with UEC, so I'm not going to undo that. But again, could be interesting. Let me look at the weekly. I don't think I looked at the weekly yet. Okay, so where are we? Look, we lost a cluster on the weekly, but it seems like this 100 might be helping us bounce, right? Where do I want to be? I hope you already know the answer before I say it, right? Roughly 50% candle by Friday would be really nice to accomplish because from there we'll go up. What does this line look like? That's a little too high. What does this line look like? That's a little too high. Hey, if we can get either of them, don't get me wrong. But yeah, I'll take a little closer to like 360 and still be happy. I actually would. Cool. UEC. Okay, GEVO. After GEVO, we will talk about the stock I got wrong. So look, GEVO, as expected, this definitely kind of fell out of the cluster and it has been going down, right? Bunch of days under the 8. This was a decent day. Again, this was also a decent day, and this was a decent day, right? Don't get me wrong, because all of them were over the 8. But when this, you want to get back over the main one, right? So if you're going to go up, you're going to go down, the go up day should beat this candle, right? And again, all of them never got over the 22. So just a couple negative things there. But nonetheless, this seems to be falling out and is, you know, not doing too well. A little bit of this curve as well. A real big buy day. Hey, if this gets over the 8, it might be an interesting play up to here. Maybe worth looking at, I will say, but nonetheless, I don't know. I wish it was a little better. I'm not gonna lie. I'll set the alert again. Let me know if it happens. 35. I'll do it at 195. Why not? Let me know what happens. Because again, going down, going up. Nasdaq did a little better today than I expected. I'll be honest with you there too. So we'll see. Let me go to the weekly before I go into LIACF. Because LIACF I got really wrong, and I do want to talk about it. Again, this is actually a pretty bad weekly, right? We're fell really hard, but again, still early in the week, but we made a very nice climb, getting close to 50%. This line is actually almost at 50%, right? It's probably like around here, give or take, right? So a lot still needs to happen to get over the 8 on the weekly, but hey, hopefully this thing is picking up. And again, I do like seeing that little volume day today. If volume is there tomorrow and the 8 crosses, that could be interesting to look at. All right, so let's look at this. So LIACF, okay? When I last did the video, I believe it was probably around here because I had assumed that we fell out of the horizontal cluster and we're going down. Instead, what does it do? It falls back in and then just shoots all the way up, okay? Not only that, what it ends up doing is it ends up parking itself, I mean, literally on the downtrend line, right? So we'll take it from the top green right here. We will find, it looks like it hits right there, right? It hit right there. And then ultimately right there, which was that last candle we saw. So, I mean, it flew to a very monstrous line, okay? If this does get over that $2 range, I'm just kind of rounding it out, right? But if this thing can trade over $2, it could be very, very interesting. So definitely keep that in your back pocket, right? But let's talk again a little bit. Sorry, real laggy on that. Let's talk about again, right? What did I see? I saw us in this horizontal and quickly losing it. From there, we were under the 8 all of these days, right? All including this one. So, I mean, well under the 8. It just seemed like we were losing the cluster. From there, though, like I said, it kind of jumped back in and then just decided to fly up, right? Real sad to see it couldn't break the 200. Well, I mean, obviously it broke it here, but didn't give us the confirmation, right? Definitely could not break that downtrend line that we saw. And again, hopefully the question now becomes, is it just going to cool off, maybe come to here and bounce back, right? Or is it going to drop real hard, right? So let's see what happens. Again, the love seeing the increase. Each day volume was higher than the last, and all 3 days volume was above the 50% line, right? Love that. That's all real good. From there, we see a big drop in volume, right? Obviously, it was up here. Now it goes down here. This was selling, and then again, volume drops again. So up, down. Gets me thinking we're coming here, but hey, I was wrong last time, right? So, but yeah, LIACF, again, this is why I say clusters. Even though this one was 3 instead of, 4 or 5 like we've seen on other videos, yeah, clusters are tricky. They sincerely are. Last up is TMC. Again, I like the stock. You know I like the stock if you've seen this. But where are we? We are at all-time lows, right? This is the last line. And once we lost it, right, you have to believe it's coming down, right? So we're now in the 70s. The real problem is there's not a lot of support to just, find us a bounce point. So I'll draw a new line there just to at least have one. Again, we got to hopefully crawl back. But at this point, we're dropping lower and lower into all-time lows until the stock gives us a reason to believe that's not happening. So again, I'm a realist, right? I do like the stock, but horrible weeklies, right? Look at all the my goodness, how bad of a weekly is that, right? So yeah, you can only expect so much from the dailies when the weeklies look that bad. But again, this is why I say stay out of all-time lows, right? This one in CEI. So hey, I hope you're learning. More videos coming soon. Have a great one.